Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. It has been said often by many wise people everyone should work in a restaurant at least once in their life. And it's true. Here are some reasons why. Do you want some new friends? Then work in a restaurant. After you serve 300 hungry guests on a Friday night with the host stand backed up on an hour wait list, the bar drinks flowing, the dining room conversation buzzing so loudly that it's going to still ring in your ears when you're at home in bed at 2 a.m. You're carrying plates held high, so busy you fight the urge to run with them as they burn your fingertips and your arms. You're dodging dozens of servers, busboys, hosts, and staff. And the kitchen sounds like a jet engine struggling to get off the runway. After just one night like that, when you and your coworkers are off, sitting at the bar next door, and you're sharing your horror stories from the night, laughing and connecting, those coworkers will become your friends for the rest of your life. Trust me. It's all about shared human experiences. Or are you an adrenaline junkie? Are you easily bored all of the time? Then go work in a restaurant. Remembering your table numbers, the chef specials, the guests' allergies, seat positions, your guest special occasion, ticket times, sequence of service, being triple sat, taking an order from an uncertain six top with a million questions for you, all the while hearing the chef expo calling your name from the kitchen for pickup. And you're also thinking about your drinks that are dying at the bar for table 16. Here's another good reason. Are you dissatisfied with your life right now? Does it seem like it's all about you and even you are sick of you? And you can't stomach the thought of creating one more TikTok video or Instagram post? Then go work in a restaurant. Do you want to practice kindness in an angry world? You want to practice virtues like humility, empathy, and servitude. And even though the chances are that your guests will never notice any of these things that you are practicing on them, simply do you want to care for others for once besides just yourself? Then go work in a restaurant. My special guest today has dedicated over 4 decades to the hospitality industry. That's over 100 years in restaurant human years. Chris Tripoli is the principal of the Restaurant Clinic. He is a concept developer. He's an owner and an operator and restaurant consultant in the hospitality industry. Chris has created award-winning restaurant concepts. He's consulted on a wide variety of restaurant projects throughout the U.S. and internationally. And he has developed successful food service programs for airports, parks, theaters, arenas, convention centers, and medical centers. Chris also teaches classes in opening and operating and expanding your restaurant to advisors and clients of the small business development centers throughout the United States. And he's an active food service consultant, society international member, and a regular speaker at association conferences. Chris has been a contributor to restaurantowner.com. And I definitely want to encourage you, if you are not signed up on restaurantowner.com and you are thinking about opening a restaurant, or you own a restaurant, or you just like the restaurant business, it's a great website, restaurantowner.com. Again, Chris has been a contributor since 1998. And if that wasn't enough, Chris hosts the podcast Corner Booth, candid conversations with today's restaurant entrepreneurs. This is a hot podcast. You want to check it out. Go subscribe. It's on Apple and probably everywhere else you look for a podcast. Welcome, Chris. Welcome to the Jeremiah Show.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's I'm so happy that I'm not alone right now. I feel like we can talk about the business.
Absolutely.
And definitely relate.
Of course you do. You know, you've been a brother in arms in hospitality for years and years too.
I'm holding down the West Coast for you.
That's
Do you get out here, by the way? Do you get out to California with any projects?
I do from time to time. I have none right now, but I do. I have, and I've got a lot of family throughout California, so I'm out regularly.
Hmm. Well, we'll have to hit a couple good restaurants when you're out here.
I'm in.
So, Chris, tell me about like, do you remember your first restaurant job?
Oh, wow. I do actually. And I'll tell you what, there's a few reasons why. I reflect on that from time to time because at an early age, I was surrounded by how similar good restaurant concepting and operations is with entertainment. And the reason for that is I was a kid raised in Phoenix. My first job, I was 15. I met a really nice luxury high-end steak seafood restaurant called the Colony Steakhouse. Now, back in the late 60s, restaurants that were really nice, you can picture it. The busboys wore the red coats and the cummerbunds, and we had live entertainment in a beautiful lounge, upgraded showroom. And that's the way nice restaurants were. It was dinner and dancing, really good showrooms. And Phoenix then, maybe now still, but then was sort of on an entertainment circuit with Vegas acts. Not the big name, showroom
Mhm.
guys, but a lot of Vegas acts made the tour. And so I was 15, and every day after school, I would go there and to do my setup and stuff. The bands would be rehearsing. The people that I got to meet and listen to, and some of the wording that I got to pick up, I use later when I'm concepting restaurants. For example, I heard Les McCann. I didn't know who he was at the time. He was just promoting his successful live entertainment tour where he did Swiss Movement with Eddie Harris, and and that album was hot in the late 60s. And so he's there and he's rehearsing and he's explaining using verbiage about point of distinction and memorability. People have to hear this, they got to bond with it, they want to hear it again. Now, years later, restaurateurs that really understand it know that concepts are led with passion. The experience has to bond with people because they have to leave wanting to come back again. Very similar. So I was 15, I was a busboy, and I was having a ball. I loved the business. I loved that they got me into the kitchen. I learned to cook. I started being a banquet waiter, and I knew then that what a cool industry this was. And I thought if I could just somehow, someday manage restaurants for other people, might be a great way to make a living.
And here you are.
Yeah.
What did you feel like that first night? If you can think back with me, how did you feel when you got home? Like what after the very first night? You were a busboy, right?
Yeah, I was. I was a
That's a
busboy.
hard job.
I was nervous. Um, and um, and of course, at my age, I was just taken by the fact how cool the
Yeah,
older people that work there are.
right.
I mean, the servers are so, you know, nice looking, and these waitresses and cocktail waitresses, oh my God, and they smell great. So that first night I got home thinking, whoa, my friends as a sophomore in high school have absolutely no idea about the life that I got to experience, last night. I think I really liked, the staff that at that time were like maybe 10 years older than me. So that was a lot. But to see them engage, to hear them, um, and multitasking and helping each other. And um, that's what I think I remember most.
And those days, my first restaurant job was a busboy as well, a very, very busy seafood restaurant in Santa Barbara called Enterprise Fish Company. And it was like the waiters, the servers, the head servers, the bartenders were gods, almost like rock stars. I mean, everybody when they went out, everybody wanted to go out with them. They had a pocket full of money, and everywhere they went, they were whisked in like rock stars. It was like that feeling of being young and going, I want to get there. I want that Friday night as a server, but I'm a long ways away. I'm doing lunches, bussing. But
And the
I,
customers are coming in, and they're all
yeah,
dolled
it's just the
up, and
music,
yeah.
right? The
Yeah. So
vibe.
yeah, the whole thing fit. So I had a really good, I guess, first impression of the industry because this was a well-run operation, and that owner, Ralph Gaines, and his wife really planned the entertainment well. And the manager had a tremendous impact on me. this big burly guy named Renato Nardoni. And Ray Nardoni was just a sugar bear. He was lovely. And what I love most, and what I try to tell clients to do today, is he saw interest in me. He saw I was interested. And so he was the one that reached out and said, come on in after school. We're evenings only. You can sit in the office, do your homework. You want to see how we do reservations? I'm going to have you check in deliveries. And you can. So he kind of drove me and allowed me to do things at that young age. And it's just because he knew I was interested in it. And I really thank him for that, because I learned a lot of good, basic, positive influences that get me through still to today, all from him back then.
I remember one time walking with a cup of soup, right? Clam chowder, and I spooned it in. And there was a drip off the side. It had a saucer underneath, and and there was a drip. And the owner pulled me over and said, no, 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 never. It's all about the details.
Mhm.
Did Ray teach you something like that you remember that
Absolutely.
sticks out?
Yeah, he did. It was all in the details. I remember him saying, it isn't just what we do, it's how we do it. Another thing I remember him talking about is that the food is a big deal, of course. The cleanliness, all these things, all these details have to come together. He said, but long after this couple forgets exactly what they ordered, and long after they forget, exactly what the price was, they're just going to remember how they were treated. So that's why the little things are important. How you wipe a glass, how you switch out the ashtrays. Of course, back then, that's what we were doing. And, all those little things. He said, you just don't forget the little things, because they're going to remember how they were treated long after they forget everything else.
Yeah. Do you remember an experience where you left a mark on a guest in that way that's memorable to you, that maybe they called the manager afterwards, or they wrote a letter, or just pulled you aside and told you how you made their night? Do you remember an experience like that? And what happened?
Yeah, this was, boy, that's a great question. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but it was at that place too. It was the Colony Steakhouse. And again, because it was kind of formal and people were out late drinking, lounge act, we didn't have a lot of children in that scenario. But I do think I made tremendous impact. And then there was this couple with one son. He was dressed nice. He was probably, I don't know, 10, maybe 12. He wasn't enjoying himself, because he was dressed up. He was uncomfortable. Mom and dad are eating and drinking. They're not paying enough attention to him. He would have probably been happy with nuggets and mac and cheese. They took him to steak and lobster. So the picture.
Yeah.
Well, they were trying to ignore him. He's fidgety. No one's enjoying themselves. I suggested he come with me into the staff little break area, and that I would watch him. And mom and dad said that was okay. Well, of course, he thought he was a rock star. Now he's in the kitchen. And he's sitting at the employee table, and he sees the steaks cooking. He sees the charbroiler, the fire. He sees everyone working. He thinks he's special. And of course, everyone's paying him attention. Every server, is coming by and giving him something. Every waitress is giving him a hug and telling him he's cute. He had probably a better time than mom and dad. And so I remember bringing him back to the table, and mom and dad purposely telling the maitre d', this guy named Frederic Richards, which, to me at the time, I'm a smart alecky teenager. I was calling him, Freddie Richards. But anyway, Frederic Richards was getting a compliment on my attention and how that was over the top. It was above and beyond, and score.
What a great story. That kid, God, wouldn't it be great to find him today? And because his memory, he remembers that every little detail of that night.
And I wonder if he's making his kids sit there all dressed up and be uncomfortable just so they can have a good time.
How cool. What a great story. Well, what happens next then after you in your career? Where do you go next?
Well, I did get into management at a young age. I worked with a company there that purchased a really interesting tourist attraction called Pinnacle Peak Patio. Paradise Valley, Arizona, way out in the middle of nowhere, Western themed, very large, cowboy steaks cooked over mesquite. And they bought it and they sent me there. And that was my first lesson in management. I was doing inventory, kitchen manager, service manager, assistant to the GM. I'm young. I'm in junior college. I'm 20. By the time I was 22, I was the GM there. And that's where I met a guy that really changed my life. There was a gentleman from Houston, Texas, who would fly into Scottsdale, play tennis at John Gardner's tennis ranch. And he was enthralled. He was just so engaged with this Western hospitality, cowboy steaks, the big deal. He was there all the time. So we got to know each other. Uh, he just was one of those that didn't like what he was doing. He's a financial guy. He was financing real estate development, but he really wanted to own restaurants. You've probably heard that many times. So he was putting together a group of young guys in Houston, Texas in the mid-70s to start a really cool barbecue hamburger concept that could expand. And I thought, God, that sounds interesting to me. So I left and I moved to Houston for what I thought was going to be 2 or 3 years, work, make some money, come back home. Instead, I became home. And I was in Houston for about 48 years, where I did help him expand a barbecue chain. Then in the 80s, I left only because I was able to raise money and do my own restaurants, which I did for about a decade. And that led me into other things, which led me into developing restaurants for others and the creation of my first consulting company.
Can you say the guy's name that
Yeah, his name was
inspired you?
Chandler.
Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler. He just went by his last name. Isn't that interesting? Just Chandler.
I like that. I just go by Jeremiah if I could get away with it.
Yeah, and the concept we created was Luther's Barbecue. Ton of fun. I met a really good group of guys, and we did 7 of those restaurants in 5 years while I was with the group. They did more later, but I left, as I mentioned, only because I had an opportunity to start doing my own thing.
Okay, so that's a great catch up. I guess we should probably take a quick break, Chris, but I don't want to. I don't want to stop the storytelling. So we'll do it real quick. We'll take that quick break. By the way, I want everybody to know that Chris sent me the soundtrack today, the music soundtrack. And I have to thank you because I really enjoyed every song you sent. And I think it tells me a lot about you. Very energetic, very high energy, positive, inspiring. You sent some really great music. So we're going to listen to that on the break here, and we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. I am with Chris Tripoli. So let me tell you how you can find Chris. You can go to christripoli.com. I'll spell it for you. Chris, CHRISTRIPOLI.com. You can also go to therestaurantclinic.com and see the services that Chris offers with his team. Find him on Instagram, Chris Tripoli CSI. Do I have that right? Oh, no, FCSI. I need to fix my glasses, and my eyesight is very small here. Chris Tripoli, FCSI, and on LinkedIn at Chris Tripoli. Chris, do you want to give out your number? Do you want people to call you if they're interested in, they're thinking about opening a concept, or they need some help fixing a concept, or they just want to talk to you about the business? Do you want me to give out your phone number?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm accessible and I have fun talking to people about what the heck they're doing in the industry. So it's 832-453-2534.
All right. And check out Corner Booth. It's an amazing podcast. Chris and his guests have candid conversation about the restaurant business with today's best and hottest restaurant entrepreneurs. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and probably everywhere else that you look. We'll be right back with more Chris Tripoli.